This story is about a movie from 1903, but it actually starts with one made almost 100 years later. This is one of my favorite movies of all time, and it feels like every time I see it, there's always something new about it. But there's one shot in particular that I've always been interested in. It is in the very last scene, and it seemingly has nothing to do with it. Take a look.
I'm an average nobody. Get to live the rest of my life like a schnook.
On the top of that, at this point in the movie, Joe Pesci's character has already been dead for a while, so what's the meaning behind it? Why cut to a random shot of him breaking the fourth wall, shooting directly at the camera, and then move on with the scene like nothing has happened? Now I say random, but trust me, there is no way this is random. After all, this movie was directed by Martin Scorsese, one of the greatest directors of all time. So I did some research, which basically means I googled it. And it turns out that this shot is a direct reference of a movie from 1903 called The Great Train Robbery.
I always took it even further, which was the Great Train Robbery. Because basically in the Great Train Robbery, they commit this great robbery, and then at the end the police get them all, and somebody in the last shot fires a gun right into the camera. That's why I have Joe Pesci firing the gun at the end into the camera of Goodfellas, in the sense that basically in Goodfellas, it's a bunch of outlaws who do this incredible robbery, and then they all kill each other, and the police get them at the end. It's exactly the same story.
So yeah, that's a pretty cool fun fact. But hold on, if Martin Scorsese pays homage to this movie, there must be something special about it. So I watched it, all 12 minutes of it, and then it hit me. This is not just any movie. This might actually be one of the most significant movies ever made. But to fully understand the importance of it, we need a quick history lesson. And there is no better way to do it than to visit one of the biggest film libraries in the world and do it the old school way. Wow, okay, a bit overdramatic, but anyways, here's the story. See, in the beginning of the 1900s, cinema was a brand new art form, and back then, a movie was just a single shot of something mundane happening, like a train arriving at a station or workers going home from a factory. They were basically mini documentaries of everyday life, no longer than a minute each. So, to make up for how short they were, theaters would project a bunch of them in a row, but without any real connection between them. And people loved them. They loved the novelty of it, and they were excited to see them, but nobody thought of them as much more than what they were: a moving picture, or movies. As the years went by, however, filmmakers began experimenting with different visual effects and tricks, and slowly but surely trying to tell more intricate stories. And that's when in 1903, Edwin Porter released The Great Train Robbery, which would mark the beginning of a new chapter in cinema history. But why is that? To start off, it is one of the earliest examples of narrative storytelling, or in other words, it had an actual plot. The movie takes place in the Wild West, and it tells the story of two bandits who break into a telegraph office and force the operator to stop the train. They then knock him out, tie him up, and board the train together with the rest of their bandit friends. Anyways, we then see some fights, they steal a bunch of stuff, manage to take control of the train, rob the passengers, and then run away with all the stolen stuff. Meanwhile, and this is very important, we see a shot of the operator regaining his consciousness and going to the local dance hall to tell everyone about the robbery. The two storylines then connect when we see the locals chasing the bandits, and after a big shootout they win and get all the stolen stuff back. Now, the reason why I said this last part was important is because it is one of the earliest, if not the earliest examples of cross-cutting, or cutting between two different sets of action that take place at the same time. Because of that, it managed to capture the audience like no other film before it. It was something that people had never seen before, and at 12 minutes, it was much longer than the average film back then. And that's not everything. Back when it was released, the Wild West wasn't just a time period in history. It was very much current times. People were reading daily in the newspapers about all the crazy things that were happening over there, and the Great Train Robbery managed to capitalize on that with a big marketing campaign. It was advertised as a headliner, the most realistic depiction of the famous outlaws in the West, and the most spectacular film ever made. And those are actual quotes. Essentially, much like modern movies, it created a lot of buzz and attention around it. It got people excited, it made them want to see it, and when they actually did, it over-delivered. And the reason is that back then, most movies were filmed much like a theater play, on a set, with the actors and props behaving much like they would on a stage. But most of the Great Train Robbery was filmed on a location. The camera was outside, on the top of a moving train, in the forest. It was packed with action, with violence, with stunts. It even had a brief comic relief scene in between all the action, something that movies are still doing to this day. Which leads us back to the iconic shot of the outlaw shooting directly at the camera. This genuinely caught people off guard and scared some of them. It had nothing to do with the movie, and Edwin Porter could have easily not included it, but to me, adding this one extra little thing on top of everything else elevated this movie to more than just a story. It was an experience. Because of all that, when it was released, it was so popular that it quickly became the most successful movie made up to that point. People were talking about it, writing about it. It was widely distributed and copied. And there was even a parody of it called The Little Train Robbery, in which a bunch of kids steal candy from a mini train, which by the way was made by the same director. At the end of the day, I think The Great Train Robbery is a little bit misunderstood. Many people claim it was the first narrative movie, which it was not. It was also not the first one to use a camera pan, nor the first one to have a close-up shot. Not even the first one to film on location. But what makes The Great Train Robbery so special is that it managed to combine all of those things and do them really well. It got people excited to see a movie for the story, and it showed them the huge potential this art form has. The success of it was enough to prove that there was enough demand to start building theaters for the specific purpose of watching movies, the Nickelodeons. Movies weren't just moving pictures anymore, they were stories, and they were constantly getting bigger and better, eventually kicking off the golden age of Hollywood. As for Edwin Porter, he continued to make movies afterwards, but never really got the same amount of success with them. He was always more interested in the technological side of filmmaking, and spent most of his time experimenting with 3D technology and other camera innovations. According to many, he was a quiet, humble, and modest man who never really acknowledged the huge influence he had on cinema. But not to worry, more than 100 years later, we're here to do that for him.